All right, guys, welcome back. Before we jump into the week 2 slate here, we're going to do a quick recap of week 1, and we'll throw it over to Schroeder here so he can talk about the games that he really enjoyed in week 1.
Yeah, there are really two standout games, but before I get into that, guys, football's back!
Yes!
It's finally back. Oh my gosh. And it was crazy. One of the lowest scoring weeks out of like the past 20 years. Defenses ruled this week. It was just insane. So many low scoring games just across the NFL. I mean, some people, I guess, who love the defense inspired like teams, they're going to really be loving what's happening. But I think it's going to be a little bit more of an anomaly than what you're going to see going forward. Anyway, one of the games I want to talk about today is the Bengals-Ravens game. So this was a shutout by the Ravens, 20-0. And you look at some of the stats, you're just like, what happened to the Bengals? They had a revamped offense. You know, they had Joe Mixon, who you expected to get the ball a decent amount. And, it just didn't go the Ravens, or it didn't go the Bengals' way. And so, I mean, looking at the stats, Andy Dalton, 16 for 31, 170 yards, 0 touchdowns. He also put up, I think, around 4 interceptions. Not too good, Andy Dalton. Here's the thing, though. If you actually watch some of the game, a lot of Dalton's passes that were intercepted were actually tipped and picked off that way. Watching the plays, he didn't look awful. I think this is kind of just, and I'm not, again, just kind of not something that's going to be happening very much going forward. I still like him for the rest of the year. But here is some of the takeaways that I had. A.J. Green looked really good in his time, even though like the turnovers really affected his numbers at the end of it. But he still put up a great, pretty decent line for what he was given. I expect him to have a monster year based off what I saw. There's still a timeshare in Cincinnati that's incredibly annoying. Mixon looked like the most talented runner. I think we can all agree on that. Jeremy Hill looked like the least talented runner. I think we can all agree on that too.
And one thing I'd like to note, Schroeder, that was a really good Baltimore defense they were going up against. So bit of a rough start for them, but should turn around.
Yeah, and I really hope Marvin Lewis actually just like figures it out and starts to go with his most talented player in Joe Mixon. Gio Bernard actually looked really good as well. And so like they could have a really good 1-2 punch if they just stopped using Jeremy Hill so much. But I think he's going to have to earn his work. But once he earns his work, I think this could actually be – if their offensive line can hold up, this could be a really good offense. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think that Jeremy Hill, they really do need to get away from him. Ever since his rookie year, he just hasn't quite been the same. And this is, again, like I said, a Baltimore defense that's just really good, probably going to be a top 5 defense. I don't think that Cincinnati's going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to be putting shutouts week after week.
So. Yeah, they're definitely not. But the Baltimore defense looked energized. They were doing a good job gang tackling. They're doing a good job of getting pressure on Dalton. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a top 5 defense at the end of the year. This is a young unit. Baltimore has always been known for their defense. And so if I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan, I am quite a bit concerned about the offense, actually. Flacco, he had very limited opportunities yesterday because I'm not sure if you guys saw, but the stat lines, they had pretty much 2 guys who ran 20 times apiece. Both Buck Allen and Terrence Rest running a lot, but I guess that's what happens whenever you get 5 turnovers. And so, you can just keep on running the ball and just killing the clock. That's not going to happen every game for him. I want to see Flacco come back and actually, put up a solid game before I can say, I have a little bit of confidence in him coming back from injury and missing the entire preseason. But obviously a win on the road, there's especially against a division opponent. Like if you're a Ravens fan, you have to feel pretty happy right now.
I would agree with that, especially the point about Flacco. I think Dalton completed almost as many passes to the Ravens as Flacco did, almost about half as many. I think he completed 9 passes, did Flacco. It's just a really weird game, weird meltdown by Dalton, but I agree. I think Cincinnati will have their chances to bounce back this year. Maybe not week 2, but we'll get it.
Well, I am looking forward to the game coming up this Thursday against Houston. That's 2 teams that really got blown out, and they're going to have to come back kind of angry to win it. And so it will be interesting to see who can take that. Starting at 0-2, obviously not good for the season, and it can really start to go downhill from there. The other game I wanted to talk about before we move on is the Vikings-Saints game. And this is a tale of 2 teams. I think most people, a lot of people at least, have picked the Saints to win this game. I've seen them as kind of like an upset pick to take the NFC South, and from a lot of experts, or so-called experts, I should say. The Vikings, meanwhile, not really a lot of people have been picking them. They started the year off really hot last year, like really hot, and then they just completely died. Their offensive line, terrible. The running game, awful. Bradford completed a lot of passes, but it was a bunch of 5-yard passes. They couldn't get anything going offensively. So I was kind of interested to see what was going to happen this week. And wow, the Vikings did not disappoint at all. Their offense looked legitimate. The addition of Dalvin Cook gave them a completely different, revamped offense that they can actually run the ball now. And by being able to run the ball now, they have an improved O-line. They got a few new guys who looked a lot better than their O-line from last year. And strangely, you probably haven't heard of a lot of guys they're throwing to, but they have a very talented receiving corps led by Stephon Diggs. They also had Adam Thielen, who looked great yesterday as a new slot receiver. That's kind of been one of the changes that they had moved away from. Last year, Stephon Diggs was their slot receiver. This year, it's Adam Thielen. So far, 1 game in, it's looking like the right decision to have Adam Thielen in the slot and Diggs outside. Kind of opens up more big play for Diggs. But one of the things that really shocked me is Sam Bradford looked phenomenal. He was throwing precision passes. He was getting it to his guys. He was picking apart a Saints defense that a lot of people had picked to be much improved this year. Now, I think we realize the Saints are probably still going to be the Saints. All offense, no defense. But still, even with that bad a defense, what he did was incredibly impressive. This is a team that I think could surprise others, especially with their very solid young defense that is always hungry and getting the quarterback. Now, the Saints side, not so good. We already talked about how bad their defense looked. They'll probably show improvement from this game because, honestly, they're not going to be able to get a lot worse. But the Saints offense, they ran into some problems in the first half. They were driving the ball a little bit, but they just had to keep on settling for very short field goals. They would get to the 5-yard line and get stuffed. I thought the play calling was very suspect. Sean Payton, usually a great play caller. This game, not so much. He kept on trying to run it from like 3rd and 5 on the goal. And you just don't do that. I think he's just trying to get Adrian Peterson a touchdown as a reunion. You know, there's a lot of talk about like him and Peterson having some words on the sideline. But from what I can see from their offense, it did kind of miss a beat, missing Brandon Cooks from last year. I think the offense overall will be in fine. But one thing that I am interested to continue seeing is what they're going to do with this timeshare at running back. Alvin Kamara, their rookie starter, actually had the most snaps. That could probably be attributed to the fact that they were behind most of the game. But Adrian Peterson, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, you know, it's kind of exactly like the same as the Bengals. You know, you kind of want to see the most talented back, which yesterday was Ingram, get the majority of the work. And it looks like Peterson and Kamara are just going to continue to cut into that. And until then, you know, I'm not sure they're going to have a ton of success running the football. They keep on trying to not give it the hot hand and not saying, hey, this guy is our guy.
And Schroeder, you raise a good point. Adrian Peterson, when you looked at him run yesterday, he did not look good.
No,
he is aging. I think that was one of the worst signings of the offseason. They have Alvin Kamara, who looked pretty promising out of the backfield at times, and Mark Ingram has proven that he can still run in this league. So it was very puzzling play calling why they even brought Peterson in, and also just why they insisted on feeding him the ball near the goal line. I would have rather seen a pass there. As far as Minnesota goes, if you give Sam Bradford some time, he can look really good. And that's what they did in this game. Last year, he didn't get the protection. He looks awful. Pretty standard formula for most quarterbacks. But yeah, I was very blown away by the Vikings. They looked really good. I'm interested to see how they do next week.
I agree. I thought they looked great. The Vikings, that is. Not so much with the Saints. I was really impressed with Dalvin Cook in this game. I thought especially, picking up – he was so quick on those blitz pickups. And that's really part of the reason why Bradford had so much time back there. He could find those great receivers. Great win for the Vikings. They face a tough test next week. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
What are some of the games that kind of brought some attention to you, and you thought, hey, these are some observations that I had?
Well, 2 games jump out to me, and they really kind of tell the tales of these teams. One was the Detroit Arizona game. Arizona is in trouble. They are in so much trouble. This was where I was way off from my predictions last week. Carson Palmer did not look good, but most importantly, they lose their best player, the center of their offense, David Johnson. Arizona's heading into a rebuilding season. I don't think they know it yet, but this is not their year. I think that their offense is going to be atrocious with David Johnson gone. And this could be Carson Palmer's final season, where I think Father Time's going to catch up to him. On Detroit's side, well, Matthew Stafford, he earned all those dollars. It just goes to show when you can get a franchise quarterback, and Matthew Stafford's not the greatest quarterback in the league. He has his bad moments. He has his great moments. But you got to pay these guys, and he came through. It was just incredible. I'll be curious to see if they can sustain it. They had a really good start last year. They kind of faded down the stretch. It's kind of been Matt Stafford's MO. He's always kind of inconsistent. One game, he'll give you a headache. The next game, he'll be great. So I think Detroit, I don't really think this game changes my opinion about them, but Arizona, I think this is going to be a awful season for them. What do you guys think?
I would definitely agree, Rob. Arizona did not look good. As soon as they lost David Johnson, especially, they just went downhill. Now, they just signed Chris Johnson today. Kerwin Williams and him are going to kind of do, from what I can tell, a timeshare to take up the back. But they are not going to be able to replace the production that David Johnson gave, both running the football and catching the football. He was the centerpiece of their offense. Without him, they're probably going to give more looks to Larry Fitzgerald. They're probably going to give more looks to J.J. Nelson and John Brown, but I'm not sure that's a good thing with how bad Carson Palmer did. This is a team that quickly went from being, potentially a top 10 offense to probably a bottom 10 offense with a loss of one player. And while the defense still is decent, they do have some pieces there. This is not a team that will be able to compete with Seattle in the NFC West. And I could even actually see St. Louis potentially climbing up and, even competing for them on the second spot there. So I do not like their chances moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, Los Angeles. I mean.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Los Angeles.
St. Louis too.
You know what's funny, guys? I didn't even notice, so I'm still adjusting to it. It's already been a year.
We just have to call them the Rams. We have to say
the Rams,
because otherwise we'll get it wrong.
Yeah. So one of the games I was right about was the Rams. You just brought them up. So they lit it up. I feel like Jared Goff at least has a chance now with this team. They got some good receivers around him: Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. But I'm still a little weary of them. We're really going to see what Jared Goff's made of now that I feel like they have the weapons around him. This Colts team, I learned more about Andrew Luck from this game than anyone. Andrew Luck is the most valuable player in the league. Now, he may not be better than Tom Brady or Rodgers, but I mean, they looked like an arena football team without him. He's the glue that held them together, gave them a chance, got them to the AFC Championship game a few years ago. This is an awful roster. I don't even think Andrew Luck can save this team. When they get him back, I think they'll win a few more games. I think he elevates them that much. But this is a total rebuild of a roster that just didn't show up this Sunday. What do you guys think?
Here's what I will say about the Rams. Yeah, they look good. It's the Colts defense, so I can't really say, oh, yeah, these guys are world beaters now. Some things I did like from the Rams side, their defense looked very good. Now, they were facing the Colts offense with Scott Tolzien, so I'm not, again, willing to say, hey, these guys are going to be elite. I could see the Rams defense actually doing a pretty good job, though, being potentially a top 10 unit, especially when they get back Aaron Donald, who's coming off a contract holdout. And so he should be back by week 2. Now, what I also like to see from the Rams offense is Jared Goff looked a lot better than last year. A lot better. Much improved. He's still not a dominant quarterback by any sense, but he pretty much couldn't get worse from last year, and especially using a first-round pick on him, the number one. He really needs to perform, and I think that probably gave LA at least a little bit of a sense of hope that, he can actually do something. Now, the last thing I want to say about the Rams is Todd Gurley and how he looked. It was not good. This game script was perfect for Gurley to have a massive game. Now, if you look at his stats, you're probably saying, okay, he got some yards, he got a touchdown, he got some receiving yards, he had a good game. But with the way the game went, he could have easily put up 150 yards. But he did not do that well with his carries. Very low yards per carry. Again, for the, hope it could be the second straight year where he's just not hitting his holes right. And he's not picking up the yards that he should be getting on these carries. So that is a little bit of an area of concern for me about the Rams moving forward.
Yeah, I'm glad oh, sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
I would agree with that, Schroeder. He looked decent when he got the ball in space. But otherwise, we haven't really seen that special player that he was in college and even at times in his first year in the NFL. Mm-hmm. It's really puzzling because I agree this game was set up perfectly for him to have a huge day. And at the end, I have no explanation for why he didn't perform better than he did. It's not the world's best offensive line, but that Colts defense. Ugh.
Very true, Joe. And I gotta say, I'm glad I didn't draft Todd Gurley in any leagues after that.
Todd Gurley in any leagues. I've been in a dynasty league, and I feel a little bit uneasy about that
performance. If you do play fantasy football, you might want to sell high right now. You might have one more week where he puts up a good week. But after that, you might want to sell high.
Joe, what were some games that you were looking at this weekend in particular?
Well, mainly this Oakland Raiders Tennessee Titans game. It was a game I thought would be really high scoring. Didn't really turn out that way, but a matchup of two really good young quarterbacks, two teams I feel like are on the rise, and I picked to be division winners this year. I was interested to see how Marshawn Lynch looked, and I thought he looked pretty good, honestly. He looked a little bit like the old beast mode, running with some power out there. It was pretty hilarious that he might have to call his therapist after this game for all the Super Bowl flashbacks after he had to watch Amari Cooper get 3 straight targets in the end zone and have 3 straight drops on first and goal from the 2. It was a really puzzling call there. But obviously they're excited about what he can do and wanted to get him going, get him off to a hot start to the season. Thought Derek Carr looked pretty sharp in this game for the most part. And, the Oakland Raiders got a great win. on the other side, I felt like Tennessee's line really I think we all agree that this is one of the best units in the league, or at least shaped up to be. There really wasn't a whole lot of running room for DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, and they really put a lot on the shoulders of Mariota. They're excited about the weapons he has there, honestly. I thought Corey Davis looked pretty good for a guy who didn't really play at all in the preseason. Didn't really seem to be limited by the hamstring injury that he suffered early on. I thought that one catch down the sideline, she showed why they used the top 5 pick on him.
Yeah, I really like that you mentioned that, Joe. Corey Davis looked really good. Just jumped right in there after missing the preseason. Looked just excellent. And I just can't figure out. You have Marshawn Lynch, you're at the 2. Just power it in there. I still don't get that. You kind of got to play to your strength there. But, maybe Oakland will learn their lesson in future games. Not making the mistake in the Super Bowl. It's probably good to do it week 1 and still win. So,
and Derek Carr didn't throw an interception too. So,
touche.
One of the things that I really noticed is there was a lot of questionable calls around the NFL this week. A lot of them. You mentioned this Raiders-Titans game. The Titans, throughout all of last year, their success was predicated on just smash mouth football. Let's run the football, and we're going to run it, but we're still going to run it on you. And they didn't get that established yesterday. It looks like they're trying to change to more a pass-oriented offense. I'm not sure that's a good thing for the Titans' future moving forward. In the meantime, over in Oakland, there's some questionable play call on throwing it to Amari Cooper and having him drop 3 straight passes. And at that time, you just kind of have to give it to Lynch, let him do his thing, get into the end zone there if you're on the 2 or 1 yard line. So, yeah, I mean, that was just one game that had a lot of questionable calls, but it was all over the NFL. It wasn't just limited to this game.
Yeah. What other game interests you, Joe?
Well, I'm going to bring up this Giants-Cowboys game. Talking of aging quarterbacks who didn't look too good, Eli
Manning.
Yeah, he was my sneaky fantasy play for this week, and that didn't really work out for me. He clearly missed Odell Beckham in this game. And, I mean, their offensive line did not play well either.
Joe, I think he clearly missed everyone in this game. He looked terrible.
And that, Joe, that offensive line was abysmal. That was one of the worst performances of the week. I don't have anything to add. He was awful.
This was pretty much a game where Dallas could just feed Zeke, honestly, which is what they wanted to do against the great pass defense.
Here's what I will say
about
Eli Manning. Rob, you had mentioned earlier that Andrew Luck should be MVP. This kind of cemented my case where you have to consider Odell Beckham too. In the 2 games, Eli Manning last year had a game where he was without Beckham, and that they did not look good. And we see it again this year. Without Beckham, this Giants offense just collapses. Even though there is some talent on that offense, it really is amazing how much of a difference maker he is.
And while I believe that you build a team from inside out, I do think receivers can be very valuable in the impact they have on, help running the ball, having a safety, having to account for Odell Beckham Jr. or Antonio Brown. He just looked lost without Odell Beckham out there. Odell Beckham would probably be my number 2 for MVP. I'm still going with Andrew Luck. But
one of my other takeaways from this game is if you look at the Giants, just how many times they ran compared to how many times they passed. They passed 38 times. They ran 12. They have no running game whatsoever. They averaged 2.9 yards. That is an offensive line that is not designed to run the football. They are not going to win very many games throwing that many times without even having a semblance of a running game. Paul Perkins, or Smash Jackson, if you prefer, is not getting the job done, they're going to have to find someone else who can actually be somewhat effective, whether that be Shane Vereen or even potentially bringing someone off the street. This is a team right now where their offense, especially if Beckham continues to miss extended time, they're going to keep on losing.
Yeah.
I would agree that the absence of a running game really kills them, especially with Eli looking cooked and Brandon Marshall looking done as well. They just couldn't really generate anything in that game.
So guys, before we leave, what are some of the games that you're looking forward to this upcoming week, and what are some of the matchups that you want to see?
Well, one of the ones I'm looking at forward to is Vikings Steelers. My instinct wants to tell me to go with the Steelers on this game. They looked pretty good. Antonio Brown looked great. I was very surprised that Cleveland played them so well. At first I was thinking, well, Cleveland's getting a little better. But at times, they didn't give Le'Veon Bell the ball. They weren't, I don't know if they're slowly working him in, what the deal is, but they just kind of let Cleveland hang in there. And Minnesota looked on point. So I'm actually going with Minnesota to beat the Steelers. I see that defense giving Ben Roethlisberger and company all sorts of troubles. I think Antonio Brown will still do well, and he's going to help move the ball for them. But I think this is another struggle. They couldn't blow out the Cleveland Browns, let alone how are they going to do against this defense. I'll be interested to see how Sam Bradford, if they can do it again. I think they're going to do very well. I think they're going to be very efficient. I think this game is going to be 23-20, somewhere around that. It's going to be a really close one that I'm looking forward to.
I would actually say Brown looked fantastic last week, but the rest of the Steelers offense, not so much. For some reason, they kept on trying to give the ball to Sammy Coates, and they should not be trying to feature Sammy Coates in this Pittsburgh offense, let me tell you that. That, and I think Le'Veon Bell just coming back so late in the offseason. Also, he was just a little bit out of rhythm. I think that will get fixed as they move on. There's one game I really, it's kind of my must-watch this week, and that's going to be the Patriots-Saints. I'm really excited for this game. I'm projecting probably close to 80 points combined for the teams. From what I saw from the Saints defense and what I saw from the Patriots defense, this has all the makings of a complete shootout. It could be really exciting to see. And the loser is going to start the season 0-2. Both teams are angry coming off of losses. It's going to be a good one. My must miss is by far, this is a game I avoid no one watching because of how bad it's going to be. Colts-Cardinals. This is a Cardinals team without David Johnson. They look terrible. This is a Colts team that's just terrible. Even with Andrew Luck, I don't think they're going to be that great. But without Andrew Luck, you mentioned it, Joe, their arena football team, and that might be a disservice to arena football team.
Sorry, that was me.
Rob doesn't like you giving me credit for his joke.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rob.
That was my joke. That's all good.
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. I think you picked out the two best games on the week 2 slate. I'm excited to see both of them, especially the Patriots Saints game. If you love offense, I think that's going to be the game for you. Two teams that couldn't stop anybody week 1. And I would agree also with the Colts Cardinals being a game I don't really want to watch. I would agree. I would say Ravens Browns is another one to avoid here. Honestly, not really much excitement going on in that game.
Well, one game I want to mention is the Bills-Panthers. Bills fan, 2 Panthers fans here. My pick for this game is the Carolina Panthers. I feel like it's always safe picking against Buffalo. But in all seriousness, the Buffalo Bills looked okay in week 1. They won as we expected. The Jets, they're just not very good. The defense looked solid. Again, it's Josh McCown, so how hard could it be to stop? They had one bad drive. And then their offense just looked a little stagnant, some bad play calling, like we were talking about. They gave Mike Tolbert, I believe, 10 carries in that game, and they were all outside runs, which was really puzzling. He's more of a downhill runner. So I think Carolina looked very good against a really, not good team. I think Cam looked really rusty in the first half, but started to kind of find a rhythm. The defense looked amazing. I think the Panthers defense is back. I think that this won't be a blowout from Carolina, but I think that Buffalo is going to struggle to score a lot of points, and the Panthers will probably win like 24-10.
One question before we sign off here. In a hypothetical game between the Jets right now or the Colts, who do you have?
So I got the Jets because, I mean, they were in the Bills game. I mean, Buffalo's, not that good, but they're not as bad as the Colts. So I'm going with the Jets. Jermaine Kearse and Robbie Anderson, Bilal Powell. These are star players. By the way, I'm totally being sarcastic, but I'll go with the Jets on that.
I would have to do the same, honestly. Josh McCown has at least won football games in the NFL. I couldn't really endorse Scott Tolzien or maybe even Brissett, maybe the starter from here on out after being on the team for a couple weeks. It's a dumpster fire there in Indianapolis. Dumpster conflagration.
Yeah.
Fire isn't a strong enough word.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're going to sign off. Please subscribe to our channel. We're going to be back in a couple days with fantasy football advice, recapping the games, and telling you what to look for in the upcoming week 2. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.